3, 2. All right, good evening, everybody. This is Jeff Colson with Junior Hockey Advisor. It's Sunday night. It's time to talk hockey. It's a frustrating night to talk hockey, and it's going to be a polarizing night for some to talk hockey. There's a lot of things we wanted to do tonight. We wanted to talk about the scouting reports. We wanted to talk about the OHL. We wanted to talk about the pandemic, but the news, the conversation is right there. And that's the Mitch Miller story and why it matters. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to break down as much as we can about the Mitch Miller situation. I'm going to jump right in. I'm not going to spend much time. I want to thank you all for being there. I know we've got a lot of different people that are not usually on tonight. We've got some people. I saw Iceland pop on. I've actually been to Iceland. The water, the hot springs. It was nice. Nothing wrong with Iceland. So I want to hear some of the comments from Iceland out there. But we've got the normal people. We've got people like Luis out in California. We've got Jeannie in Flint. We've got Dan on. We've got Mark on. We've got Greg on from Amherstburg, Ontario, just south of Windsor, and our normal crowd. So thank you all for being there. My name is Jeff. I am not a family advisor. I'm a person that's been in the hockey industry for over 35 years, coach, junior and college coach. I've been a owner, I've been a general manager, been around this quite a bit, master certified coach. So I want to break this down and look at it from as many angles as we can. Feel free to put your comments up. I might not get to every comment. I might not want to get to every comment. I've literally been up about 20 hours working, reacting, and responding to this story because I wanted to make sure that I treated it with the respect that you need to treat this story with. And I also wanted to make sure that my opinions came across the right way. At the same time, remembering what the form and function of this program is. You know, we're here to educate. We're here to learn, and we're trying to learn about the process. And there cannot be a better life lesson for every prospective junior and college hockey player, for every parent of a college junior or a college junior or a junior or college hockey player or a prospective player than what's going on right now with this Mitch Miller situation. Okay, this story matters, and it matters for us to take a look at it and to see what we can glean from it and what truths we can take from this, and also what can we do better. And what can we do better from a administrative side? What could we have done better from a parent side? And to be honest with you, we're not going to talk about from the parenting side. We can look and talk about what we can do better as parents. But I'm not going to judge the parents of Mitch Miller. That's not my job. That's not why I'm here. I cannot speak for them. I can only tell you that it's hell what they're going through. And it doesn't mean that I have any disrespect for the family that was involved and the person on the other side. So we're going to talk. I'm going to break this down. I'm going to give you a little bit of background. Then we're going to look at some of the different organizations and players and people that are involved in this story. So, hang on. Let's have some fun with this. Maybe not the right phrase on this. Let's learn from this. Let's get better from this, and let's see what we can do to make our hockey community understand this a little bit better. We're not going to be knee-jerk tonight. We are not going to take, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a young coach, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from this. If you're a scout, if you're an aspiring coach, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from this. There's lessons on temperament. There's lessons on forgiveness. There's lessons on, learning to deal with situations without a knee-jerk reaction. One of the things that drove me the craziest today when I was online, when I was looking at social media, and I was going across the board, looking at different perspectives on this, was knee-jerk, okay? Let's break this down. We'll look at some facts. You can have your opinion, but I'm going to give you my opinion tonight, like it or not, and let's see where we can come across on this. If you do add some comments on there, the only thing I ask is that your comments be thoughtful and not bashing. Don't bash another person on there. It tore my heart apart today because I had to actually kick people off of our discussion group for the first time. We've had months and months of just a blissful situation. I knew this was a polarizing topic. I knew there was going to be some controversy when we started chatting about this today, but it's going to stay the same way. I'm not going to change. This isn't a presidential chat room somewhere where you can call people names on both sides. If it gets nasty, I'm going to remove people. If it gets nasty and it stays that way, I'll just stop tonight and we won't go any further. Be respectful of the show, be respectful of the hockey community, and be respectful of the other people that are involved on the show too. So, hey, let's have some fun with, I don't mean that. Let's get rolling on this. And it's not going to be fun. It's going to be some facts and it's going to be some information. So let's roll. Let's get involved with this. If you don't know, if this is all catching you off guard, Mitch Miller is a hockey player from Ohio. He is a freshman at the University of North Dakota right now. As you know, there's been a slowdown in hockey, so hockey hasn't actually got up and running there. And over the course of the last, Mitch played for CompuWare out of the Detroit market as a U14. He played U16 for Honeybaked. And full disclosure, in the spring before he started with Honeybaked, my son skated on the same Honeybaked team with him for a short period of time, a month and a half, maybe 2 months, for some spring showcases, and then parted ways. I could probably recognize the family. I do not, nor does my son have a relationship with him, but there is some cross pollination in hockey, and in this case, we have cross paths. That was Jason Deskin's team. Jason Deskins is a good hockey man. He is an assistant general manager for a USHL team. He's still involved with Honeybaked, coaching at the same level, and we'll discuss that in a little bit too. So Mitch played for those teams. Going back before his U16 days, and he is turning 19 this year, or he's a 2001, so he must be 19 right now. His 8th grade year, he did some things that were nobody has to beat around the bush with it. They were egregious. What he did was wrong. He took a push pop lollipop, which I'm not familiar with. I tried to look them up, but I guess it looks like a lipstick and it's a lollipop inside. And I guess there's sometimes in some schools they're a popular item that gets sold at the lunch counters or their little concession stands or whatever. Mitch and a buddy allegedly either put it in the urinal or urinated on it, and then had a mentally challenged student that happened to be also black lick the sucker, the blow pop or whatever you call the actual sucker. Now, there is no there's nothing you can do about that. That happened. Okay, but let's talk a little bit about what happened. There's a police report. You can pull it up online. You can read about this. Mitch was sentenced to 25 hours of community service. He had to, by court order, write an apology letter to the victim, and he had to go through sensitivity training for this. This has not been a situation that's been hidden, and for many people online that are attacking, saying, oh, he hid this from North Dakota, he hid this from the NHL. No, this has not been a hidden situation. In fact, I want to kind of walk through something, and I hope that screen works for you. This is his Elite Prospects page. You know, we've talked about Elite Prospects. It's where everybody goes to get detailed information on a player, his stats, his background, and this shows up on Mitch Miller's page every time anybody pulls up his page. Right off the bat. Now remember, this happened when he was an 8th grader. It was a misdemeanor. Right now, this is a permanent piece on his Elite Prospects page. This is right below his name. This is on his page. You put Mitch Miller into the page, this shows up. right or wrong. What he did, I don't think anybody can argue it's wrong. But do you want your 18-year-old son, when this went up, maybe he was 17, do you want him looking at this every single day? Is this part of the punishment that goes along with this? I mean, this is the point now where, we have to realize that this is an 18-year-old that did something when he was in 8th grade. So I'm going to walk through this again. I wanted to start with that. I hate to say it. I yanked a lot of content off tonight. I was going to show you some videos that were up on Twitter, some of the victim videos, some other videos that were put up. And then I realized, you know what? That's not fair to the victim. That's not fair to the situation. I'm not going to put a picture of Mitch Miller up. I'm not going to talk about what were alleged outside of the facts. I'm just going to talk about some of the facts here and see where we can go from there. Now, this is USA Hockey's bullying policy. It's part of Safe Sport. If you don't know what Safe Sport is a program that was rolled out, and I believe at the international level, and that USA Hockey is part of the overall process of protecting athletes from sexual abuse, from bullying, from any type of situation that can happen to a kid. And you can see some of the things on here. I'll read this to you, and I'm gonna have to read some of these things to you. I know it's hard to see on some of your screens because you're on small screens. USA Hockey reporting policy is key part of Safe Sport. The Safe Sports program, it is an effective reporting policy, and it's crucial to preventing abuse. Section 4 of the Safe Sport Handbook contains specifics on the reporting policy. The policy requires that every employee or volunteer of any USA Hockey member program must report actual perceived violations of the Safe Sports program, any violations of the policies prohibiting sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, bullying, threats and harassment, hazing. Okay, that's really what the policy is about. So you're required to report these if you, and this is the tough part. If you knew about something 4 or 5 years ago that's been resolved that was a misdemeanor, is it the responsibility of the coach or the administrator or USA Hockey to get involved now? Now, in the society we live in, it's been proven that, yes, you do, right or wrong, but it's been done with adults up to this point. In other words, many people are going back and holding adults responsible for their actions of 5 or 10 years ago. The Me Too movement, the cancel movement. There's a lot of things. I'm sorry, PJ, if you can't listen because I'm not going on the victim side, that's fine. I've already made it very clear. The act was bad. The situation that happened was bad. The victim's situation is bad. But we're not talking about the victim. This isn't a show about the victim. This is a situation about a hockey player. And this whole program is about learning as parents from a hockey perspective and hockey parents and what we can do and what we can learn, coaches and parents and administrators on the hockey side. So I'm not a victim's advocate. I'm not a counselor. I don't have a PhD in any kind of social issues. What I can do is tell you about things that we can do to improve and how we can look at things and perceive things moving forward on one side of the coin. So if it's not something that you can deal with, I apologize. It's not the right show for you. But with that said, I want to show you what the bullying, the MAHA bullying policy is. It's bullying is the use of coercion to obtain and control another person or to be habitually cruel to another person. Bullying involves an intentional, persistent, and repeated pattern of committing willfully tolerating physical and non-physical behaviors that are intended to cause fear, humiliation, or harm. Of course, all these things fit. There has been plenty of proof and evidence. You can go back to the police reports on this. There is clearly no doubt that there was bullying that was taking place here. There was harassment that was taking place here. And this was not a good situation across the board. I want to walk you through what the original Arizona Coyotes statement was. Now, most of you are aware that Mitch Miller was drafted in the 4th round. Now, statistically, a 4th rounder has a very little shot of actually making it to the NHL. a 4th-round pick is going to play pro hockey somewhere and is going to be fine, but it's not usually at the NHL ranks. He might be in and out of the ranks. He might actually get a taste in the NHL, but a 4th-rounder is not a confirmed hit on this. But the statement that was made on this was, our fundamental mission is to ensure the safe environment, whether in schools or in the community, in hockey rinks, or in the workplace, to be free of bullying and racism. That's what the statement said. When we first learned of Mitchell's story, it would have been easy for us to dismiss him. Many teams did. Instead, we felt it was our responsibility to be part of the solution in a real way, not just saying and doing the right things ourselves, but ensuring that others do too. Okay, that's a fair statement. That's absolutely a fair statement. And what you see here at first is a very positive approach to this. Okay, we know he made some really bad things, but Arizona is coming in with a brand new owner who happens to be Hispanic, a brand new general manager that happens to be Hispanic, the first, I believe, in both categories for that minority in the NHL. They immediately got involved with the inclusion side, so it looked like this was lining up to be, okay, you have some minorities coming in that have a different take on things, that want to make sure that the inclusion process is going to go in the right direction, and they've got an example situation where they can work with somebody to prove that you can change. Our game, like it or not, is white males. We have very, very few minorities playing in the game. And so if the audience can change because of what Arizona was really originally going to do, I think everybody was in favor of that, of taking a chance on somebody to prove that there can be inclusion, that you can work through a process and work through a problem. So I think at first everybody looked at this and went, okay, maybe not the situation that I would, or the road I would have taken, but okay, it looks like good, thumbs up, good for them. That's what they're going to do. And honestly, I applauded that. I thought, okay, that's pretty interesting. Okay. Now, they went on to say Mitchell sent a letter to every NHL team acknowledging what happened and apologizing for his behavior. This actually came out when it started leaking. Mitchell made a huge mistake, and we're providing him with a second chance to prove himself. We hope that he uses the platform moving forward to raise awareness about bullying and to discourage other types of behavior. And if anybody knows what's been going on with this situation, that's already happened. That's already started. Now, what I didn't say, and I should back up a little bit, is, once again, 8th grade, time passed. He went and played for Comp first, I believe. Then he ends up in the U16 program. I believe he was a freshman or a sophomore by that point with Honeybaked. And from Honeybaked, he went on to play for 2 years in the USHL and was committed to UND, where he's at right now. No issues. He played for 2 different teams in the USHL. One of the teams that he played for, the coach has been around for longer than God when it comes to hockey, and has a stellar record and has a background of working with players that have had issues. His second coach that he played for in the USHL, in the Tri-City Storm, is also a guy that's tied with USA Hockey, and he was his World Junior coach. So he had a lot of experience with Mitch, and I'll show you in a second what he had to say about this. This is where Arizona went. Now, I don't know what made them change their minds, because this happened very, very quickly. You had a situation where they're all in and trying to work with a player that had a problem as an 8th grader. And they said, we decided to renounce the rights to Mitchell Miller effective immediately. Prior to selecting Mitchell in the NHL draft, we were aware of the bullying incident that took place in 2016. We don't condone that, and you can read this at a future date if you want to. I want to just skip down and say we have learned more about the entire matter, and more importantly, the impact that it had on Isaiah and the Meyer Crothers family. Isaiah was the victim in this situation, and Isaiah Myers Crothers is his full name. What we learned does not align with the core values and the vision of our organization, and leads to our decision to renounce our draft rights. On behalf of the Arizona Coyotes ownership and our entire organization, I would like to apologize to Isaiah and the Meyer Crothers family. We are building a model franchise on and off the ice, and we'll do the right thing for Isaiah and the Myers Crothers family, our fans and our partners. I have no problem with the apology to the family, but you just threw out one side to apologize to the other, and I don't understand why they couldn't be done together. I don't understand, because if you look at some of the comments that were coming from the victim's family, and they've bounced all over the place. The family did write a letter to Arizona about this, but there are other reported quotes in the paper that they wanted to move on. They didn't want to see any harm done, and I'm not really sure why this couldn't have been done together. Now, a lot of people are pointing to Mitch Miller and saying he never apologized. Well, that's not true. It was a court-ordered apology. And I live with a lawyer, and I've got a third-year law student as a daughter. So I had a chance to do a lot of soul-searching on this issue today and getting some advice on this too. And talking to some other people that are in the legal field too. I don't want to put this just on my wife or my daughter or anybody else. There were a lot of conversations on this. But the conclusion is, once you've gone to court and you've faced up to this, you're not going to usually go back and open up the door again for future personal apologies, right or wrong, especially in a situation where it's high profile. So if you were given a situation as an 8th grader and you complied with everything on that, and every coach that he's had since then, says that he owns the situation. And I'll show you that in a second. I just don't know why that Arizona could not do these two things together. I don't know why they could not have taken a player that they made a commitment to in a very, very volatile time in our society, okay? We know where North Dakota is. It's right above Minnesota. We all know what happened in Minnesota, and it's a horrible situation to be in. These are horrible times, okay? The timing of this situation for the player, once again, not talking about the victim right now. We all agree on the victim side, but the timing for the player could not be worse. It could not be worse for a situation like this. Everything is aligning for the culture that we live in right now. So let me walk you through a couple more things. This is the head coach's statement from North Dakota. We were aware of an unfortunate incident that occurred with Mitch in 8th grade. We made a decision that our program could provide him the necessary infrastructure and culture, not only to hone his hockey skills, but most importantly, assist him in continuing growth as a human being, which will last the remainder of his life. And that's coming from the head coach, Brad Berry. Now, once again, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that statement at all? Well, here's what's wrong with it. Well, first of all, let me give you a little bit of background on Brad Berry. Brad Berry's been around hockey forever, and I want to point out a couple of things. He's been on the NHL side. He's been on the college side. He's been a scout. He knows the process, and he knows what he's looking for and what does and does not fly to the next level. He's not going to get involved with a player, and in normal times, that's going to upset the apple cart. He's not going to pull in a player. North Dakota is one of the few schools that gets just NHL prospect after NHL prospect after NHL prospect. This is a guy that's got high integrity. The program's got high integrity, but they're not perfect. And I'll get to that in a second too. But I want you to see the next part of this. This is the letter from the president. Now remember, the president just came in a few months ago, came in this tumultuous time. He came into a campus where there is, you've got unrest, you've got pandemic, you've got a lot of things going on. And basically he said, I've closely monitored the situation with a men's hockey student athlete, Mitch Miller, who was involved in a situation as a youth in 2016. We expect our students to live by the values of the classroom in the community when representing the university on the field of play. After much consideration and discussions with Mitchell, the family, the athletic director, and the coach, I've decided that the best course of action is for Mitchell and the university that he's no longer a member of the hockey team. Mitchell will remain a student at UND only because the NCAA requires that if you bring in a freshman, you can't pull their scholarship that first year. Lastly, I want to thank Coach Berry and the athletic director for working to navigate through this difficult decision. I don't want to take sides on where the coach and where the athletic director fell on this, but I can tell you this, it doesn't match up with the statement the coach made. And, Mr. President, maybe you should do a little history on your program. You've had your program over the years has overcome athletes that have had multiple arrests in their tenure as players during their time at your school. And your school made it through and made them leaders, and they came out and they were positive members of the hockey community. I can go into names, but I'll just throw out TJ Oshie. Most people know who that name is. Maybe Joe Finley situation, 2 arrests. Matt Fratta, 2 arrests, 1 for DUI. Okay, these are situations where kids, young men make mistakes, and your university could stick up for them, and they made it through because their coach made a commitment that they had to be not only good men and learn from their mistakes, but they also had to be good hockey players on and off the ice. Okay, so this situation with Mitch Miller with this misdemeanor is wrong. It's horrible. But he's an 8th grader that did this 5 years ago, and you're telling me that the history of your program, of some of the things that have happened, that you could overlook as a school? No, it doesn't work that way. If you're going to stand up for those athletes, why aren't you standing up for this new athlete? Is it because he isn't an All-American yet? Is it because he hasn't established himself yet and hasn't played yet? I don't understand. Or is it just the times? I think this was a weak decision by the president of the school. I don't think the coach made a weak decision. The coach said, I knew about it, I understood the situation, and I'm willing to work with him to make him a better man. And if he makes him a better man, can this person go out and influence 10 potential bullies, 20 potential bullies? What could Mitch Miller do for us, and what could his story do for hockey? It could do incredible things for hockey. And there's stories like that all the time. There's stories of drug abuse in the NHL where people have turned themselves around. There's stories of all kinds of activity that are just with alcohol or with other things where athletes have turned themselves around and they've become great models to push forward with a different message and to change things. Do you think by everybody just turning off the light switch on the light that's on Mitch Miller right now, we are going to put him in a situation where it's easy for him to change not only himself but other people that are out there? No. So that's my take on this. I want to go through a little bit more. This is Anthony Noreen. He's the Tri-City both GM and head coach. He's also the World Junior coach for the last couple of years for it's not the World Juniors. It's the other one. It's the you can look him up, but he works for USA Hockey and the junior program across the board. This is what he says about him. I give him credit. He never runs away from it. He owns it. I certainly do not think it defines him who he is right now. He's a kid who made a mistake when he was 14 years old. He's grown from it. He's learned from it. He's changed. He's become a responsible young man. So here's a coach, a USHL coach, a USA Hockey international coach, and a general manager that's taken a stance on this that, hey, look, this kid's learned from this and he's moved forward from this and he owns it, okay? This is a kid that every time it's been brought up, he said, yep, I did it. It was a mistake. I need to change. I have changed, and I'm moving forward in a positive direction, which is what we would all expect from our kids. That's exactly what we expect. I don't know what else we could expect. I know I'm getting ran up the freaking flagpole on some of the, with some people. I haven't had a chance to look at the comments yet, but Lenny, this was an 8th grader. Okay, an 8th grader is a young man. I've been coaching U18 and junior players. Most 18 and junior guys make tons of mistakes, and we're talking about an 8th grader that's a few years away from that. So I don't agree with anybody that says you got to be fully accountable at 15. You need to be accountable, but you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. That's just the way it is. So once again, I threw up Noreen's record just to kind of show you across the board. He's been involved with hockey forever at all levels, and he understands this. So the reason I wanted to talk about what these people and their backgrounds were is because we're second guessing the fact that these coaches took this player without realizing what he was, or these coaches got duped. These coaches didn't do their due diligence. I would argue that these coaches scrutinized this player harder than anything you've ever imagined, because you don't get to that level without being scrutinized across the board. These guys have a background in scrutinizing players, and they saw something that was redeemable. They saw something they could work with, and they all came out with statements saying, hey, he did something as an 8th grader. It's in this past, and he's going to work forward and work towards doing the right things moving forward, which is the stance that the player and the family has taken on this. So I am absolutely not advocating what he did. I am not, trying to say that he didn't do anything wrong. I'm saying we all have kids, or most of us that are on here have kids. Do I want my kid judged for what he did as an 8th grader when he gets to college? Right or wrong what he did, if he did something egregious, I really don't know if it's anybody's right. Now, if this was an employment situation, if he was an employee of UND, or if he was an employee of the NHL, they couldn't do this to him because he's already served his time for his crime. Okay? It was a misdemeanor. He was given a sentence of 25 hours sentenced to 25 hours of community service, and it's over. You can't go in most states, you cannot go in and delve into somebody's past and use that against them. Okay? You can't. And in many states, if you do, you're the one that's at fault. You're the one that's breaking a law. So to say that this is right, if he was an adult and it was a job versus a scholarship, we wouldn't be having this discussion at all. If he was being signed by Arizona, there'd be a huge lawsuit. I'm not saying that there isn't a potential for lawsuits right now. Maybe there is. But, okay, I think I've given you a lot of the facts. I've given you what my side of this is. I've given you a little bit more information that most have on the situation because of the college coaches and the junior coaches that have been involved, and what Arizona originally did and what they took back. So I'm going to open up the door. I want to see what some people are saying out there. I'm going to go back a little bit. I'm sure I'm getting ripped apart on this because you're not all going to agree on this, and I get it. PJ, I'm reading your comment right now, and I'll throw it up on the screen. I get what you say, that you're shocked that I said that I'm not acknowledging. I didn't say I'm not acknowledging the family side. I'm saying I really am not the person to talk about victims' rights. I don't have a background in any of that. It's not something that I'm trying to hide from. I've made it very clear that there is a victim in this. I've made it very clear that what was done was wrong. I made it very clear, but what I'm speaking about is what I know. My lane is hockey players, and I can see a redemption path here. Okay, I can't comment or build a case on anything else except for what I know. And what I know is hockey. So I'm not trying to hide from this. So anyway, you're right. I'm not. Your comment is you're not educated to speak on this intelligently. On the victim side, you're absolutely right. And thank you for your comments. Who didn't do stupid things in 8th grade? Miller served his time. We've got that comment coming through. Probably more facts that come out that we may not be aware of. There's absolutely a case that there could be more facts that come out on this. Mark Roman. Mark, I appreciate it. Mark's usually the person that I got to pull back in a little bit. Steve, exactly. Appreciate you providing context here. PJ looks like he did apologize. So since we do not know why they changed their minds, how can we discuss it? That's a great point, Nicole. I do know why they changed their minds. The victim's family sent a letter in. You've got a brand new owner in Arizona. I think that they bit off more than they could chew with the politicization of this, of the media, that pressure that built up on this. And I think that they tried to find a different path. Is it the right thing to do? I think it was the wrong thing to do. I think it was absolutely the wrong thing to do. I think they could have stood up for both sides of this and tried to work this together. I don't think they had to make this a your side's right, your side's wrong issue. I think they could have actually worked both sides of this. But you never know. You could see more information come out on this. Dan says the kid also went for bullying awareness and sensitivity training. I do not see how we convict an 8th grader and bury the kid. Fully agree with that statement. The bottom line is that the bottom line is this is where he got caught. How many other kids were bullied? Just a question. That's a great point, Mark. Is this just the tip of the iceberg on this? Hey, my mind could be changed immediately if they said, hey, look, this happened to 100 kids and, he went around there. But keep in mind, he's a freshman now, so he's been on that campus for the last few months. And he's been in the USHL for 2 years, for the last 2 years before that. And he was playing up in Detroit for Honeybaked before that. I don't think this player has been around this situation. And I don't think that he's been around, this happened in middle school. So I don't know if he actually spent much time with his high school. He clearly hasn't spent the last 2 years at his high school. It's probably been either 3 or 4 that he hasn't been around the high school. So, eighth graders are usually generally 13 or 14. So Dan says, here in Canada, we allow Trudeau to blockade in university or blackface in university, and Mike Vick can fight dogs as a pro. I've coached these kind of kids in hockey, and you have to work for this stuff. Some of it a little. They grow up and become great players and great people. I think you're spot on in your point. I have never given up on players that I can try to salvage as a coach. I've coached kids that have had alcohol and drug issues. I've coached kids that have done things that have gotten them in trouble, and I've coached them and tried to work with them as much as possible within the USA Hockey guidelines and within the high school guidelines or within the college guidelines, wherever I was coaching at. As a president of an organization, we had these issues come up all the time with players, boys and girls at all different ages that have issues, bullying issues, and the idea wasn't to turn your back on them. It was to try to find ways to work with them. Now, did every situation work out perfectly? No. Was some of these situations a direct representation of the family culture? Absolutely. Some things you couldn't change because the family wouldn't change. Okay, I'm not saying that the world is perfect, and I don't know anything about the parents. I wasn't addressing the parents. I was addressing how this was handled from a hockey perspective. And if those of you that can't see that and think that I'm out of bounds, more power to you. But that's the way I see the world in this. Dan, I agree with that. Good try, Tri-City coach. I hope another team picks him up and he becomes a great member of society. I really hope that too. This could be a win-win. This could be a great situation. It could be a great story. Okay, Nicole comes back and says, I'm sure there are effects we don't. I think I already saw that one. 100% agree. Appreciate that comment with Miles. Robert says you give a child of any age, you give up on a child of any age, you're the problem. That's spot on. This was an 8th grader. He did something incredibly stupid, yet should not be crippled for life. I believe that's where I'm just paraphrasing that a little bit. Dave says, how far back do we go on someone's past to judge them? And that's the point. It's 8th grade now. Just like Dave says, is it 6th grade? Is it kindergarten? Do we start looking at their parents and saying, well, your dad did something wrong, and so therefore you're carrying the burdens of him? I mean, this is really opening up some really, really interesting things that I just don't know if I agree with. Nicole comes back and says some coaches will take players who help them regardless. Yeah, you're right, Nicole. Some coaches will take players regardless, but there's other coaches out there that will take them regardless of how bad they are if they need to be coached well. Okay, so that's a two-way street. There are coaches out there that are great coaches that are not going to turn their back just because somebody's had a problem. And I think, in honesty, I know Jason Deskins. I do not know the North Dakota coach, but I know his associate head coach very well, and I know the reputation he has, and I know he wouldn't associate himself with a head coach that doesn't have that attitude, because that's the kind of attitude they have at North Dakota. Just because there was a problem doesn't mean you are a problem, and I think they take a good stance on these things. Says here, Mitch Miller will play. Dan says will play in Canada someday. Somebody will give him the chance he deserves, and the team will grow from it. Very good chance. I would not even, I would not write him off to be playing in the USHL again. He's got 2 teams that liked him. Steven says, They do, and hopefully they try to get the player to grow and mature. I think he's commenting on what you said about that, Dan. Looking to see if there's anything else I can throw up here. I think I'm going to call it quits after this here. This one says, coaches at a junior and college level do not take problem children for a W. There is a line of replacements waiting for the spot without any problems. Robert, there is some truth to that, and there is a lot of scrutiny on players. But once again, was this a problem, something he did in eighth grade? Can we really say that he's a problem now? He's got 3 solid, reputable coaches that said he hasn't had a problem since. He's had 2 great years in the USHL. He's been a USHL All-Star. He committed and was entering and is at UND, University of North Dakota, that scrutinizes players up and down. So I agree with your statement that coaches don't take problems. Exactly. Nobody else is seeing him as having a major problem. They're seeing him as a player that did have something happen and is working his way through it, and maybe is even a better person because of that problem, because he learned from it and he's trying to change other people around him. So I think that's it. So the comment comes in from Lillian about inclusion, usually being about trying to increase the number of non-whites, not about including a bully, as you seem to imply. You're fully right on this, except the owner made a comment that said that was part of their process. He immediately brought this to the inclusion panel as something he wanted to work with. His comments and his actions said that he was going to try to help in this situation. And I believe what his thought process originally was this is only going to help men fences. It's going to make our audience, meaning in Arizona, of a lot of non-whites that could potentially be fans, see that they're working to try to work through problems and to make people better and to understand the other side. So I think that they were looking at this in part of the process with the inclusion. And there's a lot more that I can get into later on that, but I just don't have the time to get into that discussion now. So, but I see your point on that. I'm not sure I got any other questions in there. I'm just scrolling through to see if there's any questions on this. Everybody seems to have a good opinion, and thank you so much for having thoughtful, educated opinions. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to agree with my side. I'm not really sure that, saying that I'm uneducated or not intelligent enough to take a position on this, because I think we can all take a position on this. Yes, I have a platform for doing this, and yes, I have a background in this, so I'm taking advantage of it. But I hope that everybody keeps these kind of comments that are very positive. Disagree. That's part of this process. But let's keep it on the part. Michael Hermbrat, who's a dear friend of mine, my old college line mate, says, thanks for opening up this discussion. Hard to move forward without addressing uncomfortable topics. Just so you know, I spent about an hour on the phone today with Michael. I appreciate Michael tuning in. He's not somebody that usually gets involved with the live stream, but he knew that this was this wasn't something I wanted to do tonight, but it needed to be done. Somebody has to stand up and say, come on now. This is an eighth grader. Let's look at this with a little bit of practical side. And I know our society is about knee-jerk, cut them off at the knees, say silly things on social media, rip people apart, and then walk away and go watch TV. But I don't think that's the right way to do things with this situation. Okay, so unless anybody else has got anything on this, that's all I got tonight. We're gonna table the things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about that scouting sheet I posted the other day that came from one of the other social media sites. I think it came from the Hockey Think Tank. It's a fabulous learning tool. There's a lot more to it. I want to get into the no-check situation with the OHL. That might be resolved by the next time we actually get on. I know we're not an OHL show, but the non-checking thing, it needs to be addressed. It needs to be talked about. We'll get to that later on this. I can't focus on any other topic. I know I'm going to be on emails and phones and texts for the rest of the night on this. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for taking the time to watch. I hope somebody came out of this with a little bit more of an open mind. I hope that I influenced some people to think about this in a little bit different way. and maybe gave you a little bit of extra information that you may not have had. If not, we can try again next week, and we can see if we can improve. Okay. Everybody have a great night. Thanks for tuning in to the Junior Hockey Advisor.